Welcome to today's session. We are going to discuss everything to do with emotional intelligence from a leadership perspective, whereby you can be able to lead with a bit of some ease, with some emotional intelligence, without necessarily losing your edge. I know the moment we talk about emotions from a leadership perspective is like, now we don't allow emotions here. And I have a very special guest who is going to take us through this topic. Allow me to welcome Stephanie Wangoi. Welcome to the show, Stephanie. How are you?
Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here today.
Thank you very much for also accepting my invite to come in and share about this topic of emotional intelligence. So probably as we start, I would just want to give you a minute to introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, what you do, and yeah, then we can give you a chance to continue with today's presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. And my name is Stephanie Wamboi. I am an industrial and organizational psychologist. I work with Nightwise Human Capital, which is a consulting firm that specializes in the application of psychology in workplaces. My role there is as the director of employee well-being and assistant programs. In simple terms, that just means that I spend my time designing wellness interventions to help organizations work better and treat their people better. So I'm really honored to be a part of this platform to engage with the Leaders on Point audience. I'm really looking forward to engaging more with you guys. It's going to be a great time. So that's me, Daniel, in a nutshell. Small part of me, yeah.
Stephanie, I think the stage is yours now. You can take us through today's training about emotional intelligence from a leadership perspective.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. I'm just going to share my screen with us since I have a presentation just to help us grasp the subject matter to make sure that we're all reading from the same page. So let me do that. Super. Thank you, Daniel. And welcome, everyone. So I'll try to keep to English since I've heard that it's not only Kenyans that are here today. And so welcome to our other African brothers and sisters and anyone else really who is also beyond the continent as well and you're joining us. Today we're going to be discussing about leading with emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is a topic that has received so much attention, especially in the past 2 decades. Particularly because people have realized that it's something to be learned about, it's something to teach people about, and it's something to be esteemed maybe beyond the other forms of intelligence that we normally have. So I'm just going to take a unique approach, an approach that would be unique to me, as I do enjoy this topic a lot. And I want to invite you guys to go on with me on this journey and just indulge me and my own thinking as regards this topic. So first things first, we hear a lot about emotional intelligence, but is there really a way where it can relate with our day-to-day lives? Personally, I love watching movies and series. And so I felt that that's a good common ground for us to begin. One of my favorite movie directors is called Christopher Nolan. And Christopher Nolan is quite a unique writer or filmmaker simply because all of the movies that he makes always have something that is so significant. If you don't know any Christopher Nolan movie, here are some of my favorite of his movies that he's done. There's the famous Inception, and there's something that's a bit more recent, which is Tenet, and there's of course the classic Interstellar, amongst all of these others that we can see. One thing that I love about these types of movies is that you often need to watch them more than once to understand what the plot is about or what exactly is going on in the story. And so for me, I take Christopher Nolan movies as an EQ test of some sort, mainly because he always includes such intricacies in the storylines. It takes a lot of mastery for him to have been able to understand the emotional processes that a character must need to go through, and the viewer is going to also go through as he writes out the plot of the story, and then as he directs the execution of the film. And it's something that I really, really enjoy, and I respect him for that, because I do think that it takes a high level of emotional intelligence to be able to create plots or films such as the ones that he has created. And so for me, this is my everyday or day-to-day first encounter with EQ. It's something that you can recognize even in the things that you watch, or in the things that the content that you interact with. And it's definitely something to appreciate in mastery such as the ones that are displayed on your screens. So now let's come down to the subject matter and understand in particular what exactly emotional intelligence is. So, emotional intelligence is an umbrella term that was coined by the person whom we consider as the father of EQ, who is Daniel Goleman. And he says that EQ is a person's ability to, number one, identify, number two, assess, and number three, control one's own emotions and the emotions of others and that of groups. So, Daniel Goleman is a researcher who ended up publishing his research and publishing a book as well in the 90s, talking about emotional intelligence. And it's quite common for people to have an assumption that maybe EQ is something that Daniel Goleman created. Absolutely not. Daniel Goleman is just the person who coined the term emotional intelligence, or also what we refer to as emotional quotient. So if you look at research today, they will share that there are four types of intelligence today. There's number one, IQ. So IQ is your ability to be able to comprehend mathematics, to be able to solve mathematics, to be able to recall things, to be able to have memory. And so that is IQ essentially. Number two is EQ. EQ is now your ability to be able to identify, assess, and control your own emotions as well as those around you. And then there are two other types. I'm kind of like forgetting them. However, but there's four types. There's social quotient, which is about your ability to create and maintain relationships and connections throughout a long period of time. And then there's also adversary quotient, if I'm not wrong, which is your ability to recover quickly from adversaries that occur in your life. And so research recently has shown us that EQ is amongst the most important types of intelligences that we can have. And though our societies and our systems are structured in a way that IQ takes precedence, EQ will always be the leader amongst all of the four. And so we're going to take some more time to understand that. So Daniel Goleman went on to write a book, and it's one of the books that every single person who wants to understand emotional intelligence will always go to. It's basically why emotional intelligence matters more than IQ. And he goes into great detail to explain what it is that his research has found. And so we're going to delve into that more. But remember, like we said, in this research came out really in the 90s. Daniel Goleman posted his research in the 90s. Before then, was there emotional intelligence? Absolutely. From the 1930s, there was a man called Dale Carnegie who actually was talking about emotional intelligence without necessarily calling it emotional intelligence. And this is a book maybe some of you have also read or you've heard about, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in this book, he talks about the power of remembering people's names, the importance of not winning arguments because it's a lose-lose situation. It's quite an interesting book. And at the bottom line, you can actually identify and see that what he was talking about is your ability to nurture emotional intelligence. So according to Daniel Goleman, who is our reference point, given that he coined the term EQ or emotional intelligence, EI, he came up with 4 pillars, okay? And we are going to have a look at what those pillars are. So on your screens is a table of a sort where on the vertical side, you have recognition and regulation, and on the horizontal top side, you have self and social. So it's a quadrant of a sort where we have classified the different pillars that are in emotional intelligence. In the first quadrant, we have self-awareness. So self-awareness is your ability to be aware of your feelings as they are in real time in the present. It's about you having an accurate self-assessment of how you are or how you're feeling of who you are. And then it's also about having self-confidence, a decisiveness about you, which is so, so important in self-awareness. On this second quadrant is now the social aspect, where we have social awareness, and all of these are falling along the side of recognition. Social awareness is your ability to have empathy, and empathy is your ability to relate with other people, to understand what other people are feeling, to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and understand what it is that they're going through. Then organizational awareness, definitely in our organizations that we currently practice in your career journey, are you able to have an awareness about the people that you work with, the structures as they might be, and how things operate in terms of the people context? And then of course also a service orientation, how you handle other people, okay? Just your position and your relationship with how you interact with other people. And the third quadrant now is at the bottom. Okay, the third part of it is at the bottom, which is now the regulation aspect. So as much as you might be self-aware, it's really important for you to also be able to self-regulate, or in other words, self-management. And that means your ability for self-control, your ability to be transparent, your ability to be adaptable in the face of change or in life in general, your ability to have drive or motivation or initiative, being able to take initiative about the things that you need. So that it's quite important for you to also be able to manage yourself. And then the last but not least is now relationship management, which now comes back to this aspect of social awareness. Once you have understood the groups or the people that are around you, are you now able to build and to nurture and to sustain now relationships from those aspects? So we're going to just talk a bit into detail about these four pillars and now contextualize it from a leadership perspective. What exactly does self-awareness mean? So self-awareness is the ability to understand your own emotions in real time and recognize how they impact your thoughts, your behavior, and your performance. Okay, so we're having something interesting here. You can have a look at your emotional well-being in terms of your past. However, when we talk about you being self-aware, we mean you need to know your emotional well-being currently. Okay, it's easy to look back into your memories and assess and realize maybe what it is you are feeling then, but self-awareness means you are able to recognize what you're feeling in real time and also see how they impact your thoughts, your behaviors, and your performance, especially because emotions will always have a reflection, or they always show themselves in our work. It will always come out in what it is that we do. So for a leader, self-awareness looks like, number one, understanding their own strengths and weaknesses. Very, very important. A leader who is self-aware will be able to tell when they should be delegating or when they should be asking for help, simply because they might be able to know this is not my strong point, and so somebody else might be able to do this better than me, and they're even more precise by knowing who that person might be, such that they can be able to delegate to them. And then they're also able to know what their strengths are. As a result, play to their strengths more. It's really, really important. Or something profound that I had early this year was that be strong in your area of strength. Really, really important for leaders to know the areas in which they are strong so that they can also build on that. And also the areas of weaknesses so that they can know when to engage and involve other people for help. Number two is being decisive and straightforward when delegating. So something else about self-awareness, and I had mentioned when we were looking at the table before in the previous slide, is that it's really important to be decisive. Being decisive means that you have a clear intent or a clear direction that you're taking with what it is that you're saying, and that as a result will ensure your communication is quite clear with the people that you're dealing with. Otherwise, when a leader is not very concise in their speech, when it's not clear what the aim is from what it is that they're saying, then it can be quite confusing to be able to collaborate appropriately with other people, and even for them to be able to measure what success or failure is going to be in that particular instance. So a leader who's self-aware will be very decisive and will be very straightforward when they're delegating a task. And then number 3 is being authentic, which is my favorite. Being self aware means that you have no need to be like anybody else. You will be able to embrace who you are and be able to show that in a way that society also finds acceptable. So, here we're not talking about because this is how I am, this is how everyone is going to take me. We're not talking about you being delinquent in a way. We're talking about you learning how to function in society appropriately, but by retaining your authentic self. No need for you to be like anybody else, to speak like anybody else, taking who you actually are and retaining it in the way that you do things. That is a mark of self awareness. The second pillar, like we mentioned, is self-regulation or management. And that this step often comes now after self-awareness. After self-awareness, the next question is going to be, so what am I going to do about it? Yes, I found out that I am unhappy. Yes, I found out that I am very happy. Or yes, I found out that I have this and this and this. Now, what am I going to do about it? Self-regulation or self-management is the ability to regulate your emotions. And keyword here is not to eliminate them. So we're looking at you being able to manage your emotions and not you trying to delete or remove them or covering or suppressing how it is that you're feeling. You need to be able to come to a place where you address the emotions that you feel for you to be able to effectively manage yourself. So in leaders, self-regulation looks like this. Number 1, the ability to remain calm or recover quickly from upsetting situations, especially emotional situations. That is quite important in a leader, that it's really important for them to learn how not to lose it, as we normally call it, where you are you're ticked off or allowing people to get under your skin and showing them that they have upset you or that they have done something that is quite shocking to you. It's important for you to learn how to remain calm and then at the same time to recover very quickly from an upsetting situation that occurs. Number 2, it looks like a leader maintaining a positive outlook despite challenges. Okay, so this is quite difficult for many of us, where sometimes a challenge might come our way and we feel like we want to hang the towel completely. But a leader who has the ability to manage themselves will be able to still maintain, keep their eye on the prize, keep their eye on the goal, and to be positive in spite of the challenges it is that they might be experiencing. Then number 3 is, of course, the ability to adapt to change. Quite important, to shift ideas and alter approaches. A leader that manages themselves well or effectively is able to change very fast, so to move along with change very fast. In the technological age that we're living in, if there's one thing that is constant, is that change. Change will continue to be constant in this time of technological advances that we're living in. Somebody that is able to regulate themselves, especially as a leader, will be able to adapt very quickly to change as it comes. They will be able to shift their ideas. They're not of a fixed mindset. They have an open mind, and then they're also able to change their approaches, which means that they are willing to take risks even in the face of change. And last but not least, self-regulation in leaders looks like the ability to make decisions to change one's behavior or thought patterns. One thing about us, we are really what it is that we think. Our thoughts is what make up who we are. And if we're not willing to grow from the point of our thinking or from the point of our actions, then whatever transformation happens is not really going to be permanent, simply because we have not allowed ourselves to be transformed in the area of mind and in the area of action. And so, as somebody who is able to manage themselves, will be able to change whatever thought processes that they have, especially when they realize they have toxic thought processes or unhealthy thought processes. They will be able to change that, as well as behavior. They will be able to take the right action to ensure or solidify their change of their behavior. Okay. The third pillar, like we talked about, is social awareness. And social awareness is the ability to interact in groups and read social cues. In comes in verbal and non-verbal cues. And particularly, we want to take a big focus on non-verbal cues. And those are like body language, facial expressions, physical proximity, and any other non-verbal responses, which might also include your outfit. Sometimes there could be something written on somebody's t-shirt that reveals maybe more than they intended to reveal. So your ability to be able to interact in groups and read social cues is now what we call social awareness. And leaders implement these skills to normally to understand the following in groups. Number one, emotional currents and patterns. As a leader in any organization, whenever you have a team that you're working with, it's really important for you to get to understand what people are currently feeling. It's hard to fix something or to work on a project when you don't know where people stand emotionally. And so it's really important to get an understanding of people's emotional currents. And at the same time, there are patterns as well. Are these people that are readily open to change, or are these people that are resistant to change? Are these people that respond very well with one-on-one touch, or are these people that respond better with more team kind of communication or collaboration? And so it's important for a leader, through the skill of social awareness, to be able to read into these cues and determine emotional currents and patterns in their teams. Number two, they're able to use this skill to read power dynamics and to identify influencers. Anytime we go into any new place, it's really important for us to understand what the power dynamic in that situation is. In the context of organizations, it's been made easier for us simply because there is already a structure that is in place. So you are able to, in a sense, determine this is a person that runs, is running the show. So if you want to do whatever, you need to follow these particular processes, and these are the people that you need to get approval from. But at the same time, if you are the leader, it's also quite important for you to determine who are the influencers in these organizations. We have many, many underdogs in organizations, people that are not holding any particular role or any leadership role, and yet they might be quite influential with their colleagues. And so through the skill of social awareness, you will be able to identify what the power dynamic is and who the influencers are within a particular group, so that you can be able to operate more effectively within that group. And then number three is, of course, the existing social networks. Definitely what kind of a network it is that you have, the different context of the different networks it is that you have. There are personal networks, and then there are social networks, and then there are professional networks. And it's really important to always be able to distinguish between the differences and not be able to bring personal issues into professional networks or professional issues into personal networks, which can both be damaging to those relationships. So disclaimer here, great leaders use the skill of social awareness to implement change, which can be done, of course, through the skill of the art of motivation, motivating employees to implement positive change within the organization, and also to demonstrate empathy, where you have a clear understanding of what it is somebody is feeling. As a leader, you have the ability to understand, to empathize with their feelings about a situation, and not to manipulate groups. People are actually very, very aware, even though they might not be conscious. What does that mean? People might be very aware, even though they're not necessarily conscious. It's very easy for people to pick up on nonverbal cues, even when, and especially when, we're trying to also manipulate them and use certain skills that we've learned to be able to manipulate them. It's easy for people to pick up some of those factors simply out of nonverbal cues. And even though they might not be able to articulate as to why they're feeling a particular negative energy or a negative sense from you, they will be able to pick it up nonetheless. And so it's important for you, once you do learn how to cultivate the skill of social awareness, to use it to just make the situation better or to make your workplaces better. And last but not least is relationship management. And so relationship management is the next action we take in response to social awareness. Now that you have come into all of these networks, what do? Relationship management is the ability to form, build, and maintain good relationships with others and over a long period of time. Okay, so it's quite important for you to, number one, learn how to initiate relationships, different kinds of relationships, if I might add that. And then number two, it's important for you to know what each relationship is going to require to build. Okay, what is it going to require? Personal relationships might often require a certain type of effort to be exerted over a period of time for you to be able to build them. Or professional relationships might also require certain types of incentives for them to be able to be built into proper relationships that you can have. And so it's important for you to also be able to assess what every relationship needs for you to be able to build onto it. Then the third thing is to be able to now maintaining. Maintaining is where the art is, because many of us have very large networks, and yet, or we know many people, hundreds and some even thousands perhaps, or hundreds of thousands even possibly. But how are we? How do we maintain these relationships over time? And are we good at maintaining these relationships? So that would be the test when it comes to the skill of relationship management. So in leaders, relationship management involves, number one, coaching and mentoring. Really important for a leader to be able to have different types of relationships. And for this, the analogy that I normally use is the one that is similar to like a cross, okay, or a plus sign. If not a cross, a plus sign, where you must have people that you look up to, that is the direction that is going up. There have to be people that are mentoring and coaching you. Then there has to be people that you are at par with, that is on the same level with. So that on the cross, this would be the right and the left, or on the plus sign, this would be the right and the left. Your peers need to also be there. And then towards the bottom, there needs to be people that look up to you and people that you two are coaching or mentoring as well. And so this is a good sign of relationship management as a leader when you are coaching people that you're working with, either at a peer level, at a mentoring level, or you as well being mentored. Quite important. Number two, it's also managing conflict. Simply because as a leader, you are managing people, and managing people means understanding where people are coming from, even in the face of a challenge or in the face of a conflict, and now being able to use that knowledge to appropriately solve, and also use these relationships to be able to appropriately solve and deal with conflict whenever they come up in the workplace. It also looks like leading or guiding groups. Definitely, if you are a leader, you are leading a particular class or a particular group of people. And so relationship management means that people have put their trust in you and they're able to actually follow your lead. Whenever you do provide guidance, or whenever you show leadership, people are able to appreciate and take your leadership into account. And last but not least, it's also collaboration, collaborating with a team. Very important to be able to show that you can work with others, or using the skill of relationship management to be able to work with different types of people. Now, normally in today's day and age, the people that you'll have who struggle the most with relationship management are probably people that score very highly in high IQ, and simply because matters to do with this form of intelligence are just, they are very stable, let me put it that way, in the sense that it's always 1+1. There's no day 1+1 will be 3. It will always be 2. And so it's a very sure form of interaction. And so as a result, you might not need to depend on anybody else rather than maybe the information it is that you have. And so it becomes quite of a challenge for people who score highly with a high IQ to collaborate with other people, simply because now this presents a challenge. People are complex and people are difficult to understand, so they say. And so collaborating with a team is a great way to not only nurture your skill to build relationships, but also to just mature that in yourself as well. So let's make it even more practical, okay? So we are leaders here, and we're on a platform that is centered towards our career journeys. And so I decided to pick a case study on EQ that was done within Google, the organization. And this project was called Project Aristotle. So let me give you guys some background. So Google came up and decided that they wanted to find out what exactly makes a perfect team. Okay, so they noticed that they always hire the best of the best that there is, but these teams are normally so different from each other. So what is it? Is the success of an organization determined by hiring the best people, or is it determined by hiring people from a particular field of work, people from a particular location, people from a particular country, or people of a particular gender? They really just wanted to come and find out, because they would study one of their teams and realize that they are very successful, but at the same time come and observe a different team with very different qualities from the first one and realize that they're also very successful. They sought out to begin this study, and they named the project Project Aristotle, where Google, of course, is quite perfect with collecting data. They analyzed a lot of data amongst their 37,000 employees over a period of 2 years and about 180 teams, to just come to understand what exactly makes a perfect team. Are you curious as to what the answer was? The answer is psychological safety. Okay, psychological safety, which is quite it was quite an interesting finding for me, because psychological safety essentially is a heightened sense of emotional intelligence. In fact, in a business model, what we would ideally go for is, number one, to for you as a leader to apply emotional intelligence means that the next thing that will happen is that you will create a sense of safety with your teams. Psychological safety means that it's a space where the team is able to express themselves openly, they're able to speak openly, there's a sense of trust and trustworthiness. And so people are comfortable enough to be able to take risks within their teams and to be able to express their ideas and their emotions about a particular situation. And so as a result, this leads to career and business impact. This, to me, is one of the sure ways to be able to have business success, by applying EQ. And if you just follow the 4 pillars that we talked about of EQ, you will be able, if you just follow those things and apply them as we have talked about, you will be able to create a space that would be safe for teams to be able to function in, and as a result, have the impact that you want to see within your organization. So in conclusion, I wanted to share a parable, or one of my favorite parables, and this is the parable about the man in a hole, or it's a story, but really it's a parable because it's an allegory. It's not really a story in itself. So just bear with me and get this visual. So a man was walking down the street and he happens to fall inside a deep hole or a ditch. And the hole is so deep such that the walls of the hole are too high. He actually cannot climb outside of this hole. So the only option that he has is to kind of like sit put and just wait for somebody to come and help him. Along the path comes a doctor, and so the guy inside the hole, kind of like shouts out, "Doctor, doctor, help me, man. I'm stuck inside this hole." And the doctor looks at the man and he says, "Don't worry, my friend. I know exactly what to do." He writes a prescription and then he throws it into the hole and he leaves. And so the man is still left inside the hole, though he has a prescription. The next person that comes on the path is a priest. And the man is able to see and to identify from his regalia that this is a priest. And so he says, "Father, Father, please help me. I am stuck in this hole. Help me to get out." And the priest says, "Don't worry, my guy. I know exactly what to do." He prays for the man that is in the hole and leaves him with a word of a blessing. Then he goes on his way. So the man inside the hole is there with a prescription, with a prayer, and with a blessing, but he still is in the hole. Then he notices his friend Carol is passing along the way and says, Carol, you really need to help me. I'm suffering. I'm inside this hole. You really need to help me come out." And Carol says, "Don't worry, my guy. I know exactly what to do." Carol jumps into the hole and joins the guy inside the hole. And the guy is in despair because he's wondering, "Caroline, why have you jumped inside the hole? Now both of us are not going to be able to come out of this hole." And Caroline looks at the man and she says, "Don't worry, I have been here before. I know exactly how to leave this hole." And she shows him the way out of the hole. what this story is trying to point towards is the profound power of the relationships it is that we keep, and how at the end of the day we will always need medication. For example, medication will always be very, very powerful, and it will always be very important. If you watch any movie that is centered between the mid-century ages, you will come to see the benefits and the appreciation that you should have for medication. We will always need technology, and technology will always be an added advantage to what it is that we do. And we'll also always need communities and religious institutions. These are quite essential and important to who a person is, but nothing will ever take the place of a human touch or the human interaction that each and every one of us should be having. Nothing can take the place of relationships. And so, if this isn't a call for us to be able to practice or to be quite more intentional with growing ourselves in EQ, I don't know what would be. So, my conclusion for this presentation is going to be this: we are in a people economy, our currency is people. So, let us learn how to live with people, how to work with people, and how to manage ourselves when dealing with people.
I think it is important at this point, if someone really resonates with what you have shared, they really want to get in touch with you, they want to see what programs do you have, can you come to our organization and trade about this EQ or any other, how do they get in touch with you?
So we have a website. Our website is just Nightwise Human Capital. If you just check for Nightwise Human Capital, you're going to find us everywhere. That would be on LinkedIn and our website as well. And if you email us on info@khcafrica.com, then we will also be able to get back to you on what your inquiry is. So as I mentioned, I do spend a lot of my time now studying people, and we take a lot of pride in the fact that we understand people in the context of organizations. And so all of our solutions are normally bespoke because organizations are like people, they are complex as well. You need to take time to understand what its precise needs are. And so we have a lot of programs ranging from, of course, some of these aspects for developing on a leadership level, or even just to help employees to navigate the 8 dimensions of well-being, whether that be their mental health, their emotional health, their physical health, their financial health, which is a great stressor, as well as their organizational health, their spiritual health, whichever dimension. We always have solutions that we can be able to implement on that regard. So yeah, just Google us and reach out. Let's connect as well on LinkedIn
Yeah,
and pick up the
likewise,
conversation.
that's correct. Yeah.
Yes, Nightwise Human Capital, correct.
Yeah, that's it. Search it, Google their website on LinkedIn. I want to say thank you very much, Stephanie, for joining us. Quite an insightful session. We'll be able to communicate more on how we can be able to collaborate and also have probably some of your workshop. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and until our next session. We out. We out.